Hey, this is Brandon. You're watching the podcast where I do every leak code daily and I get it on one line. Let's see what we got today. Okay, so you're finding the nth number that contains x. That's not that bad. If we have n is 1 and x is 8, then we would just have 8. If we have n is 2 and x is 8, we want to just keep this 8. This is kind of a freebie, right? We can't have any number less than 8. We couldn't have 7, something like that, because that won't contain all of the bits that 8 contains. So we can never have a number less than this. This is an even power of 2, but even if this was 9, that would still be the case. And then the next number we're going to have is just the smallest number that contains an 8-bit, so 9, and then 10, and then so on. And if we go for a more complicated number, let's say n is 5, x is equal to 13. So 13 is an 8, there's a 4, there's not a 2, and there's a 1. So this is the binary for 13. Okay, well, we have 1101, we have 1111, we have 11101, 11111, and then 101101. So it's like we're kind of just taking the zeros and we're like, this is now what we care about. So for 1570, we have 110010 and 1000110. Count through the bits of x, and we can kind of say, okay, there's all these zeros. There's also 000. There's infinite leading zeros. So count through the bits of x and the bits of n and say, okay, we're at this index here and this 0. So that's going to be a 0. So far our number, if we build it out from the right, is going to be 0. Okay, and then we have 2 1s. Those have to be there. Those have to be set bits. And now we're here and here. So then we're going to have 1. And now we're here and here. And then here and here. It's going to be 0 and 0. And then a 1 because of this. And then 2 1s for these 2 zeros being this. So our number should be this, which I don't really want to do by hand, but 1110, 1110. So if we have n is 50, x is 70, will this print the right answer? Fuck. Oh, you know what it probably is? It's probably that it's n minus 1, not n, because we only go up to nums at n minus 1. We don't actually go up to nums at n. So if this is 51, I bet the answer now will be 462. Yeah. With that in mind, now the question becomes, we're sort of just like enmeshing these two numbers together. We're just saying for every 0 there is here, go to the next digit here. So what's the best way to turn that into a loop in one line? It's going to be some sort of a take while of n. So while n, and then I could like bit shift over a 1 here. So like 1 bit shifted to 0, 1 bit shifted to 1, 1 bit shifted to 2, and so on. I guess I'll start with that, and then it'll probably become fairly obvious how to get that on one line. So okay. So while kind of equates to take while if you're trying to get it on one line, but that's not the prettiest. I could do bin n minus 1 backwards. It's interesting. This is such a trivial thing to do once you recognize what you have to do, and yet it's weirdly difficult to do in one line. You're substituting every 0 in x with whatever digit there is in n. I wonder if I can still do this trick with a string. Bin n from 2 on. What does this look like? 110010. And then you could pop it from the end. You could say n.pop, and then you have a way to say take while n. That's not a bad idea. I think it's going to come down to building a list, turning it into a string, turning that string into an int. Like it has to look like that eventually. It's going to look like that. There's just no way. I would love to do this with just integers, and I think you could. But the thing is, like, keeping track of b and 2 while loops it's just easier to turn it into a string at that point. Even though it's dumb that you're turning something into a list, into a string, into an int again, but that's what we got to do because that's mutable, so it's a lot easier to deal with. Now res is going to be list map something range 32. If it really seems impossible to get the lambda b out, then I'll just keep it in. I'm okay with that. As long as it's like somewhat elegant, I'm happy. First things first, n has to have something in it. If n doesn't have anything in it, then it's just an empty list. And I probably need to say bool n. No, I just have this be a take while. This is a take while. So no matter what from this point on, it's going to return true. If n has anything, you're still going. I could just do the take while with x, and then I would pad it with a bunch of zeros. That's reasonable to me. Yeah, that's reasonable to me. And then I don't even need to keep track of b anymore. So this will now be, we want to count from the right side of x to the left side. So it's going to look basically like this. This is what we want to use with x. And now this represents the xth bit. Okay, before I forget, I'm going to say n is bin of that, but with n minus 1. So I don't have to also say n minus equals 1. Okay, so for lambda bit, I think I'm going to say b times int b. So what this is saying is like either you have a 1 character and then you have one of it, or if you have a 0 character, then you have none of it, and that will evaluate to false, or n.pop. And then the only other thing is that I need to pad x with zeros to the right. Because otherwise what could happen is like if x was just like 2 and n was 50, then your answer is going to be some big thing, but this will only parse like this 0 and then this 1, and n will still be something, but the take while will have ended. Dot L just 32 0. And just to be safe, I'm going to see what this actually is. Yeah, that looks right. That means here really it's going to be res backwards though, because it'll be building it out in the other direction. And then, but what I want is a bunch of leading zeros. I mean, this looks pretty good. Okay, pop from empty list. Here we go. So probably I need to have parentheses here. I know what it is. The problem is that take while doesn't actually like take the transformation that you've issued. It takes whatever the original was. So what I really want is take while map that. And I just have to say none for like if it's anything. I'm thinking of filter. Filter, you can say filter none, whatever. And it's like, if you didn't input anything for the first thing, then it's just the identity evaluator. I can kind of just get around that by saying bool. Okay, there we go. That took so long to figure out. Now it's going to be that. And then finally, I need to say n colon equals all of that. Shit. I made it pretty far. What went wrong here? It would output 2 because it's saying the first thing is 0, the second thing is 1, the third thing is 2. But it didn't actually even make it up to x itself. So for all of this, or x. Fuck. All right, well now the problem is it's not going high enough. So what if we just did like 64 and 0? All right, I'll take it. Kind of a monster problem, not gonna lie. But it wasn't that bad, the actual logic. I just really got stumped on the take while. That like fucked me up. Whew, that was a good one. See you next time.